Good morning, all.
Hello.
Hey,
Howdy. Hey, everybody. If you have things you'd like to talk about, please add them to the agenda. Otherwise, we're going to have a very short meeting.
I
We'll
love
get
the goose
started in
hat
just a
up
few
in the
minutes. What's
love
that,
the
please?
goose hat. I said I love the goose hat up in the right hand corner behind your head.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also have a shark.
Ooh, is the shark one going to be making an appearance in Vancouver?
Maybe it was in the TAC yesterday. We have this internal program called Shark Tank where I was the MC, so I wore silly shark hats for the whole meeting.
Love it.
We'll get rolling in just one more minute. Please change the color of your entry to mark your attendance. And then if you have any items to add to talk about today, please do. All right, all right, all right. It is February 8th, 2023, and today is the Education SIG's full SIG call. We will continue on as we always have, as is tradition within many of the Open SSF groups. Do we have any new friends to this group today that wanted to introduce themselves and say hello?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jim St. Clair. How are you? See, Rob? Yeah, I think there's a few familiar, friendly faces here from my days at Linux Foundation Public Health and working on a couple of the streams from last year. I'm now working with FinOS as part of their open source readiness initiative to define a body of knowledge and evaluation steps for OSPOs, security, staffing, etc. And thought it would be great to get plugged in with the education SIG to develop kind of a bilateral information sharing relationship as we try and carve out specifically what areas of security education we want to build into our open source readiness curriculum.
Very nice. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The Texas Health Services Authority was created by the Texas.
My attendees list got immediately covered up by the fact I have 3 compliance tests I have to take today. Yay me. Do we have any other new friends that wanted to introduce themselves today? All right. Can I get a volunteer to assist in scribing notes for us today? Thank you, Abhishek. All right. So please add opens that you have underneath our opens section. Quick update from yesterday's TAC call. The TAC apologized. They're very sorry. They promise for reals this time they're going to read the plan and give us feedback and the path forward on getting that in front of the governing board for review. So I anticipate hopefully in the next week or two, we will have feedback from the TAC members. And there's a whole bunch of like a whole little solar system of lurkers and hangers on the TAC call. So I imagine we'll get quite a lot of people taking a peek at the plan and hopefully giving us feedback and then direction on when we're going to go to the GB. Any questions about that? Okie doke. I want to give Christine and Jay an opportunity. Do you have anything from the DEI subcommittee you want to share for the group?
Yeah, I can give a quick update. So we met last week and we were primarily focused on the short and midterm. One of the things that we wanted to do in the short term is to put together a CFP. So we submitted that for the Open Source Summit in Vancouver. So that's in there for a Birds of a Feather talk, put it in the leadership track as had been suggested in one of the previous meetings. And other than that, we were looking at getting together a list of partners. These would be like partners who serve like underrepresented communities. So we wanted to get that partner list going and start putting together POCs so we can start kind of like approaching them for to see where we could fit in and help out. The other thing that we wanted to do as well is look at upcoming conferences and marketing opportunities. So one of the ones that was suggested that's coming up shortly was B-Sides, and potentially just going in there. And the goal is to get feedback in terms of like which initiatives that the subcommittee should go after. And other than that, we also wanted to put together like a project plan or a Kanban board, because there's a lot of things that we want to look at, but we want to just get it all organized. That's the quick update. Oh, and another thing is just also wanted to go ahead and start going to some of the other working groups and just making it known that we are available, because there might be opportunities where some of these other subcommittees may want to reach out to the same communities that we want to serve. So giving them an opportunity to tap into our resources as we build them up.
Very nice. Any questions or feedback for the DEI subcommittee? All right, awesome. And I did get confirmation yesterday that there will be an open SSF day at Vancouver. So they're going to open up a special CFP for that at some point. So DEI and everybody else, be prepared that if that pops up, we potentially have another opportunity to submit talks or have arranged conversations like what the DEI Birds of a Feather suggestion is going to be.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Let us, has anyone had any opportunity to reflect upon the pieces of content I shared last call on January 25th that Intel has is able and interested to potentially donate to our efforts? So did anyone have anything on that list that they wanted to maybe get a peek of, or anything you explicitly wanted to say, no, that's not interesting to us? I have a call with them tomorrow, and I potentially could start to get materials tomorrow if
Can I get a, could you Slack me a link to the list? Cause I must have misplaced it.
It is on our meeting notes for January 25th. So if you just scroll down a couple scrolls, it'll be right there.
Let's see.
Yeah, so it looks very nice and interesting.
We need to go over that, Glenn, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, Rob, is it an idea that we join the meeting then tomorrow to have a more deep dive into the content, or how would you want to proceed?
If this is an internal call, so I'm meeting with the two people that run the training program. So if they're interested, if like we say, we really want to see the fuzzing stuff, I'll say, hey, the team really wants to see the fuzzing stuff. Can we get a copy of that to look at? And then, if we want to have a longer conversation, I'm glad to set that up. I can, again, start that conversation tomorrow with them if we want to have more in-depth and engaging calls with the internal Intel team.
Yeah, because if I look at it, I would say yay to all the topics. They could all be interesting. I don't know how much overlap there is, of course, with the stuff we already have, but I think it's very good to see what they have and how in-depth and comprehensive it is. So I'm yay for all the topics, actually.
I still can't find the link.
I'll post the agenda into the chat.
I'm on
And-
the agenda.
On the left-hand side, you have the outline view. If you click on 2023-01-25,
I hate their app.
Page 6, basically.
Page
and
6.
there's starting at Intel possible content donations.
Chrome, what is the medium of the content? Are those videos, markdown files?
The answer is, what is the type of content? Yes.
Yes, okay.
There are videos,
The
there are
best.
instructor-led classes, there are cheat sheet help guides. So there's all manner of things. I believe these are predominantly instructor-led classes. But we also have access to videos and other stuff as well.
Yeah, looks very interesting. So
Yeah.
maybe with the talk tomorrow, tell them, hey, you guys are awesome. We want everything. And then we will go through it.
Yeah, hardware threat modeling looks real good. Now we had a threat. We were just talking about a lot of this too. Yeah. We'll
right,
review
so-
Chrome and get back to you tomorrow or later today. I will make it a point.
And if I could potentially get a prioritization on the list, because what we would
Yes.
do is I can get access to the stuff and we can look at it, but to actually, before they could donate it, it has to go through an Intel legal review and a scrub. So that takes a little bit of work. So I don't want to tell them I want 50 things. I want to kind of say, here's our list. And, as we get them done, they can turn them over.
Fair.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the secure coding, secure development, and security for management. I think those are actually the most interesting. Maybe security for management even more, as we have already identified we have a gap. The others we do have already something, but yeah, maybe still it's good to see what they have and again to enrich and yeah.
Right. So I will tell them a enthusiastic yes. I will tag a couple things we'd like to see short term, and then I'll set up a call to have this group formally talk to the Intellers.
Awesome.
Any
Thank you.
additional questions on that? What was that, Randall?
I said thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It never hurts to help. All righty, let us talk about intro to open source readiness. You want to take that away, Jim? Lead us on a little chat.
Yeah, Rob, sorry about that. I was trying to
worries.
finagle how I can share from my iPad. I haven't mastered the share a slide from the iPad on a Zoom, so I'll spare the graphical overview for today and just provide introduction. As I mentioned, I'm working with FinOS, and we have a strategic initiative for the year on open source readiness. And happy to share some notes or graphics after the fact. But in a nutshell, we have both a preliminary body of knowledge that we have been putting together based on inputs from To-Do Group, other organizations. And I'm sorry, Abhishek asked the right question. The FinTech Open Source Foundation, FinOS, which is also part of the Linux Foundation. And primarily financial membership, finos.org. I would encourage everybody to go and sign up for our newsletter, take a look at it. But we do want to ultimately build both a body of knowledge that any organization could be able to take a look at. It will be open source, but of course aim towards our membership to say, we want to get started on a journey in open source. We'd like to establish an OSPO, open source program office. What are the things we need to do? And that should ultimately break down into organization, policy, personas, roles and responsibilities, excuse me, and security, of course, is part of that. So as we delineate areas of study and education to be included in what we come to consensus around for a body of knowledge, we also want to translate that into potential new training and certification routes as well. And then we have also introduced a open source maturity model, which is kind of a version 1 new pilot effort And we envision a continuum where you could come into open source readiness, go through training, establish your organization, establish the policies, implement security, governance, and move from open source utilization to open source contribution, and then ultimately be evaluated against that maturity based on your compliance with the body of knowledge. And of course, OpenSSF is the right place to come for all things open source security and want to incorporate that. And I was excited to be able to get involved with the SIG. Open to any questions, happy to discuss.
Randall.
Jim, I think we might be able to help you with some content should you need it with our new APIs. Because basically we have a program at SKF, which is the SKG, which is specifically to basically feed security content to other platforms.
Yeah, that's excellent, Randall. Thank you. And I'd be honest with you, I saw SKF in the Slack and on the GitHub repo. I haven't dug into it yet, but intend to, so I can report back on that and report back on collaborating with you as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And let me know when you do, because we could show you the new SKF, because there's a new SKF, which is actually Linux Foundation Associated. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll be happy to show you, Jim.
fantastic. Thanks, sir. And other than that, look forward to participating with you in the future too.
Excellent. Does anybody have any additional comments or questions for Jim? I'm pretty excited about this. I think there's a lot of value we can have in this collaboration, helping, both communities, both the financial focused as well as the general open source developer and consumer folks. So very excited.
And maybe Jim, could you drop some links in the chat that we can actually look at and where to find stuff, and because it sounds very interesting what you do, but
absolutely, Glenn. I can also go into the agenda or add them to Abhishek's meeting notes as well for a follow-up, because there'll be a couple links, and like I said, coming from my iPad here, I might not have everything immediately captured, but
Funny
yeah,
enough, Jim,
I would offer this is intended to be an ongoing conversation. So if there's anything I don't have today, I'm in the Slack channel as well, and want to continue to broker discussion. So
I was going to say Glenn's in the financial industry or works in the financial industry.
yeah, exactly. And I also built their whole security champion and maturity program. So I think it sounds a bit the same, but probably not, if I understood it correctly. But that's why I was asking, like, hey, could you have some more info? Maybe there's also areas that I can enrich, your what you're doing. So yeah.
absolutely. And Glenn, you bring up a good point. Our first go around in terms of education is what you might consider education awareness, organizational education, and then building off of that with, say, specialty training for developers. There may be security tools that we include in that developer training, or say the OSPO lead themselves may have some additional security dashboard training or awareness of SBOMs or something along those lines that get built in. So there'll be I think opportunities for layering that education.
Christine.
Yeah, Jim may or may not be aware, because I also attend a lot of like the To Do group. For those who don't know, To Do is related to OSPOs, just kind of like a community for OSPOs. And I know one of the potential things that they might be working on this year is closer collaboration with OpenSSF. And so that might be like a good point to bring those discussions as well.
Christine, you're exactly right. And we've met with Anna once and are setting up an ongoing meeting, plus looking at some other ways to establish direct with To Do group. And I know in the To Do group Slack chats, we've talked a bit about To Do group and OpenSSF. And so I think the three organizations together collaborating is an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you have come across them in your travels yet, Jim, but there is the end user working group, and that is focused on open source consumers And that is the majority of participants there come from large European and American financial institutions. In fact, Jonathan Meadows from Citi
Mhm.
leads that group. And so that might be another place where you can kind of go and talk and try to drum up some additional energy for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan and I work together on some SBOM education material. So yeah, looking forward to talking to him. And he is, I think, with Citi, and Citi is a member of FinOps.
Right.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. Any additional thoughts before we move on?
All of my original thoughts have died of loneliness at this point. So
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Moving along, Avishai has a very special thing to share with us about some translations he's going to help orchestrate.
Yeah, right. Thanks. So actually, I posted this on the OSSF mailing list as well. We are starting to assess the contribution of translation, the secure development course into both Hebrew and Arabic. And this is an effort that I'm trying to lead together with my Arabs at Microsoft colleagues at Microsoft Israel. Yeah, we started to actually assess the work. We've been doing initial testing with some document translations API, and we are getting quite good results. We hope to get even better results with some collaboration with the product groups who maintain those APIs. And eventually we believe that there will be, of course, some work, but a manageable amount of work to maintain that over time.
Any questions or comments for Avishai? Very excited about this. We just recently had the content translated in the Japanese, which was very well received. And I think, again, the more native languages we can get the content to, the broader our reach is and the bigger impact we're going to have around the world.
Of course, specifically in EMEA, I think many communities, for many communities, English is the barrier, right, to this content. So we do believe that the impact here will be great.
Glenn.
Yeah.
Do we know what?
Sorry. Who goes first?
Go ahead, Glenn.
Okay.
Go.
No, I just had a question about versioning and making sure that what type of version of the material we have. So do we already have like a sort of a process or procedure to keep track on what is being translated, and if there's new versions, how and who is going to do that again? Just from curiosity point of view.
Yeah, so internally we are doing the translations using GitHub Action that takes the content directly from the repository, uses the translation API, and creates a pull request with the delta of changes from the previous version. So that can also be contributed. And I know the foundation has access to the APIs that are being used. So we can use that over time as well.
Cool.
Any additional questions, comments, or thoughts?
Yeah. Do you know what languages have already been created for the secure development content?
English and Japanese, to my knowledge. We could follow up with David. I don't know if they've done anything else.
Okay. See if we find some Spanish speakers too.
Another big language we'd love to get the content into.
Anyone have any suggestions for translation, sort of like around, like if I'm disclosing a vulnerability to a project that's a Chinese-based project. I have encountered issues. This is slightly off topic. Forgive me. I have issues with disclosure abilities in, cross-language projects. Are there any services that the Open Source Security Foundation has around, like, hey, I need to translate this disclosure into a foreign language. Can someone help me? And do so in like a, not via pull request, but more like via private discussion sort of channel.
I'm not aware of anything. I know that they were trying to spin up a best practices working group out of China. So there is an LF member that is, I think, resident in Hong Kong that was going to lead that. I don't know where that went. I would chat with Brian Bellendorf, Jonathan, just to see if that went anywhere and if we have a contact. But I'm unaware of any
Cool, thanks.
services. All right. I see we have a couple updates on our favorite security knowledge framework. Randall and Glenn, you want to share what you wanted to share about SKF?
Yeah, so I made the development team promise to have demos ready at least on a monthly basis. This was also a request because we're organizing with LF how we're working with them and you guys and everything. And one of the things that we really want is to really like to leverage this group more, get this group more involved, like with everything. So yeah, so the two things I have is that I have made the developers commit to at least a monthly demo of the changes that are happening. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is how we could all further collaborate more together, which is kind of a question that I'm getting from LF as well, as far as like how like this group wants to be involved, if that makes sense. Which is, I know, a big question, so I don't expect a bunch of answers, but yeah, it's a complicated question.
What are some of the things SKF would like to see from the SIG? Feedback from the demos sounds like one thing. What
I
other
would say
types of things would you like to see out of the group?
I would like to see a lot more feedback on the content, in how we're going to organize the content. I know that there is a lot of potential for overlap in content. I think that some overlap is okay because I think that there's actually, when you start to look at it, there's different points of view, because you could look at this as a bug bounty hunter that's trying to make money, which is sometimes, difficult. And then you have like
Good luck with open
developers
source.
who have a different ideology. But you get my point. So, but I do think it's important. Like, I'm making a course about bug bounty hunting that I've exchanged a few messages with Jonathan about. And that's kind of more about like from the like penetration testing in that point of view, which is different because we've been like in SKF, we've been sitting and we've been figuring out a lot of our content is developer focused. It's not so much like, well, how do I go about detecting this, and like even figuring out if it's a problem? And one thing I've noticed also talking to bug bounty hunters, a lot of them don't understand how a web application works 100%. So that's also interesting. So we're trying to cover all these things. And I think like feedback on that would be, good, great.
I think the group is definitely open to having you guys come in. We'll carve off a piece of the agenda every so often. You can do your demo or request specific feedback. We'll get around to the prioritization of the content, I hope, very soon. Again, we're just kind of waiting for the TAC and GB to say, go forth and conquer. And then we will set up, we'll branch back off into our subsections again and start to focus on specific topics. And one of those first topics we're going to have to address is locking down the personas, locking down the kind of course curriculums we want to target first, and then start to align for reals the content to that curriculum and see where we have gaps, because there probably could be some stuff like we could borrow from things like the Intel donation, but there'll probably be stuff that we don't have any content for, and we're going to need to say, hey, anyone know how to do threat modeling 101? We need a class, and we need a lab, for example.
And I
So
also want to say that the SKF has been somewhat increasing in scope in terms of potentially including other projects and doing other stuff of that nature where it gets real interesting as well. So, but I will say this, going back to what we were talking about, LF is very, shall we say, interested in establishing what is going to be offered for free and what will be actually how we're going to make money, or not make money, but make the platform sustainable is the
Keep the
wording
lights
we
on.
like to use.
Yeah.
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 So I think that that's also some, like, at times I would be an important conversation to have with this group, because I think part of that is what content can we have the most impact with?
Yep. And we had talked about early on about the potential tiering of the content, where you had
Mhm.
content for beginners, content for intermediates, and then advanced content. So that might be a way that they figure out how to capture some sustainability there. But yeah, I there's not, we could start, if people are interested and are not afraid of potentially rework, we could start to chopping the things into courses and then aligning the content we have and looking at the, yeah, we could, nothing stopping us from doing that now. But there is a chance that there might be rework if the board prioritizes something else or says that we don't want to do that, for example.
I think to a certain degree, Krob, it would be good to kind of align, because I know, for example, Tim is supposed to be like the cybersecurity responsible person at LF, who I'm reporting this to. And like, I just
is he a
think it would be
sorcerer
good-
named Tim?
Tim Sir S. Serwin?
Yeah,
Or,
I've got
I
it.
don't know. Yeah, yeah. But but you get my point. But I think it would be good to bring them on, because I think that there is a disconnect there between our plan and them looking at it and them understanding all of it.
So again, there's nothing stopping us from self-organizing and working now, kind of like how Christina and Jay are getting a focus around a specific topic area. There's nothing to stop us from doing that. It's just we run the risk of things getting shuffled in priority or potentially getting nacked. So I wouldn't suggest we spend a lot of time focusing in on like the grants piece that Sal had requested, because that's money and the board will definitely have to approve that. So we could have some high level outlines, but that definitely I would suggest will change in scope and size and potentially focus. But things like we have an inventory of content and we want to provide some classes, there's nothing stopping us from starting to line that up now and doing that gap assessment.
Fair. And I
And
also
anyone that's
will
interested
say,
in helping kind of wrangle those cats and get those meetings set up, I'm glad to help get the foundation set up.
what I was gonna say, Krob, is that maybe at some point it might be useful to have like an SKF meeting, if you will, on the board, just because I do. So LF will certify the courses, is from my understanding, but I think that like, it would be nice if we had kind of an open opinion of what, like, the content we provide, because it was always supposed to be a platform in public domain. So I just feel like as a community group, like that could be one of the things that we have a hand in offering. And yeah.
Again, let's
Maybe-
anyone that's interested in helping coordinate that, and I will be glad to give you support with meetings and whatnot. So if we want to have an SKF meeting, whether it's part of, I think definitely part of this call for demos, but if we want to have a specific dedicated SKF call and anyone that's interested in helping collaborate shows up, let me know. Let's get a doodle set out. Let's get a time and find out when we can get the contributors' interests and availability.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk to Glenn.
Yeah, the
go,
first one could be, for example, after we made the call with Intel and we gave them the short list, and they actually have the material, I think it would be good for people to also join that meeting, as yeah, we're going to consume that into SKF and we all have an opinion about it or how to integrate and see overlap. So I do agree with Randall. It should be good that it is a team effort and not, yeah, only, I don't know, us three actually, because yeah, it's going to take quite some work, right? As well, and we don't want to do things that others might think, yeah, no, it's not worth it or whatever, right? So it would be nice to have more people there, and indeed in an open space makes sense. So maybe that could be one of the first meetings then.
That sounds
agree.
good. And I think, you know, once the plan has some attention on the governing board, I feel things will start to move very quickly, because many people on the board are very excited about education. So I think they're going to want to start to see quick progress. So we will expand back to potentially at least 3 additional calls for focus areas, but maybe more, you know. So just we'll try to optimize everybody's time as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair.
Because, some people might not be interested in the whole platform and the techniques around it. So cutting it up in that and really one part about the content, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
All right. Any additional thoughts or comments around SKF?
What does SKF stand for?
The
Security knowledge
Security-
framework.
Yay.
There you go. Thank
I
you.
didn't want to like go over everyone because I figured somebody would like be like, oh, it's security knowledge framework. But yeah.
I love them questions. There you go.
No worries.
It's a tool that allows for kind of hands-on practicing of some of these skills and reinforcing the concepts that might be in other things. Glenn had gone through and absorbed a lot of the secure fundamentals class into SKF, so it's really a pretty interesting experience, and it's really more for people like with hands-on keyboard as opposed to getting talked at in a class.
GitHub's working on something in this area under the GitHub Security Lab for educating maintainers on best practices about security vulnerability and stuff like that. I will
We should get Zav in here.
ping. It's not Xavier. It's one of his underlings.
One of
That's
his
a better way putting
minions?
it. One of his minions. I will ping his minion and let him know about this working group.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, Xavier's the co-lead of the Vuln group with me, and he's been a long time contributor to best practices and many of the groups. So yeah, GitHub's been very good partners.
Yeah, and
If
just
anyone knows anybody from GitLab, I would love for them to also be great partners. Drag
Yes.
them along in here.
No, I just wanted to say, indeed, we talked with Xavier like what 2-3 years ago already, because he was one of the first as well, and we still had the idea to actually do something with CodeQL as well in the labs and the training material that we have. So it might be definitely good to get somebody again in from them to also get that started again, I would say.
Good.
So
Awesome.
Jonathan, if you can ping them, that would be great.
I also expect SKF to grow incrementally now with LF involved.
Yeah, at the beginning of the foundation, both the big gets were here, and unfortunately the lab folks have dropped off over the last year. So I would love to have their continued contributions. So yeah, I'll reach out, Max, with some ideas for re-engagement. All right, does anyone have any other topics they want to discuss today in regards to the education SIG? All right, with that, we will adjourn. I will see many of you in 20 minutes when we talk about source code management best practices. Yay, speaking of
Yay.
So the rest of you enjoy your day, and we're looking forward to continued collaboration. Enjoy.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Bye.